convolution. So we have already covered many examples of the convolution along with the convolution property. So now I think this last two lecture we can spend for the revision, because there has been a long time when the semester has already been started, and meanwhile you have even given the external examination, so you have been out of the track, and in a preparation of the mid semester so final examinations, and after the final examination again we have started the semester new semester. So in between there are some lagging, and looking to that lagging, it is essential that we will go through all the parts, all the chapters which we have already covered in this course. So you maybe remain connected with the course content of this subject, and you refresh your memory, and we will see what parts we have already covered so far. So in this lectures we are not going to discuss too much new things, and because we have no any new things to be discussed before the midsem examination. The next chapter would be a Laplace transform, and the Laplace transform and jet transform. These two chapters are remain. So next chapter would be a Laplace transform, and we are going to start these chapters after the mid sem examination. But before this mid semester examination, that today we will discuss about what parts we have covered so far, and it's just kind of a revision kind of a lectures in which we revise the things what we have covered. And in last lecture, maybe by tomorrow, we generally discuss about the paper style, and how many types of the papers, how many kind of questions we will ask, and what is the weightage of each chapters in your examination. So we'll discuss basically about this whole thing. Okay, so now here we are going to start with the course contents, what we have already covered within this span of this 2 to 3 months. 3 months has been completed, right? Because we already started in December. So it's a January, February, and March. March is about to end. So we have in this 3 month, I think we have covered at least 20, 25, 25 to 20 to 25 lectures, and whatever the course we have covered, that I'm going to discuss in this lecture. Okay, and if you are not getting any, my sound is audible, and if you are getting any not clarity of my sounds and the visibility of the lectures, that you let me know about this, right? So I'm going to share my screen with you. I think it's visible, right? Is this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, when we have started this semester, so we have discussed about this fourth chapter. The first chapter is about the introduction of signal and system, and the second chapter is about the behavior of continuous time and discrete time, linear time invariant system. And then we have gone through the introduction of Fourier series and Fourier transform. I think Fourier series has been completed by the principal sir, and Fourier transform is running. And the last chapter is about the jet transform, and the Laplace transform is also covered over here. So now this the first three chapters, almost two chapters are completed, right? So this two chapters you may consider in your mid-sem exam, and a half of this chapter, where up to the Fourier series representation, half of this chapters will be covered. Depends on the I don't know about what other side has been done. I mean, principal sir has covered how much topics, but whatever the topics are covered will be included in chapter number 3, and I have already covered in chapter 1 and 2. So chapter 1 and 2 will be fully asked with along with the some portion of the chapter number 3, right? So in your mid-sem exam, you may expect the completely coverage of chapter number 1 and 2, along with partial portion, some portion. I mean, you can say some portion of chapter number 3. along with some portion of chapter 3. So this is your syllabus for a mid-sem examination, and mid-sem examination will be a mixed bag of some questions of 1 mark, 2 mark, some multiple objective kind of a question, and some questions are of a theoretical questions, or some it's not theoretical questions are very less because it's a but there are few questions are of theoretical questions, and most of the then we have examples of 2 marks, 3 marks, and all. And the last chapter is the sampling and reconstruction, that is not already covered. So we kept our syllabus up to this point only. Chapter number 1 and 2 would be fully covered, and partial chapter 3 will be covered. And the book, I have suggested you 2 books. One is the Oppenheim. Oppenheim is a very nice book. And the second book is Anand Kumar. Most of the examples are given in Anand Kumar and Oppenheim. There are some other books are already available. You can refer those books. You can even refer my class note also. My class note will be shared with you within a very short span of a time, maybe by tomorrow, and that will be uploaded on a Microsoft Dream, right? So you can access this one from there. So whenever we have started the first lecture, so we have discussed about the syllabus, we have discussed about the 2 very important concepts over here, the signal and system. So what is the signal and what is the system that we have discussed? So by definition, the signal is a collection of data set, and system is entities which process the data and generate a new set of output. So that part we have discussed. We have taken some examples and real-time examples where the signal and systems are widely used. Then we have discussed about the syllabus of the signal and system. Then we basically go about the various basic signals. We have been gone through the impulse signal, how to represent the impulse signal, unit step signal, right, and ramp signal. And we have even established the relationship between the impulse signal, unit step, and ramp signal. If you take the integration of impulse signals, that we are getting unit step signal, and if you take the integration of unit step signal, then we are getting here the ramp signal. But reversely, if you take the differentiation of ramp signal, then you are getting the unit step signal. And if you are taking the differentiation of unit step signals, that we are getting the impulse signal. So this part we have already covered. Then we have even gone through some very popular signal which we came across many times in a different perspectives, like as the sinusoidal signals, exponential signals are one of them. Then we have even discussed about the sigmund function. Sigmund function is a function which is 1 for all the positive value of t, and it is -1 for all negative value of t. Then we have discussed about the sinc function, which is sine of x by x, and then Gaussian function, Gaussian signals that we have already described. So in this lecture, of that date, 17th December, we have discussed about the various kind of signals and how to represent them mathematically. We have discussed about this thing. Then we have even discussed about the how the continuous time signals to represent, how to represent the discrete time signal, what are the differences between continuous time signal and discrete time signals. Moving forward, we have discussed about the mathematical presentation for all such kind of signals, like the impulse signal, unit step signal, sinusoidal signal, sinc function, sigmund function, and all. So that part I'm going to just left for you. We will move. For all the signals we have already discussed, right? Up to here, we have discussed about all such kind of a signal, exponential, sigmund function, also. You can go through this one. Then in the next few lectures, we will continue this portion, and then we will move to the another types of signal, classification of signals. So signals can be classified broadly in this 5 category. The first category is a continuous time signal and discrete time signal. The second signal is analog signal and digital signal. The periodic signals and aperiodic signals, then energy signals and power signals, and deterministic signal and probabilistic signal. So in this lectures, we have gone through this all the kind of signals with some examples, which signals will fall in which category. So then we have gone through first with the continuous time and discrete time signals. Then we have taken a look about the analog and digital signals. Then we have discussed about the periodic signals and aperiodic signals, and how you can define the signal, whether the signal is, how you can check whether the signal is a periodic signal or not a periodic signal. And then we discuss about the energy and power signal. Here we have defined the equations. Eg is equal to the integration of minus infinity to infinity g of the whole square dt. And then we have defined the equations of power, and some examples of energy and power we have already solved. Then we have gone through the last types of a signal is a deterministic signal and a probabilistic signal, the signal which can be represented in form of a graphical or mathematical illustration, that is known as a deterministic signal. And probabilistic signal or random signal are those signals which cannot be represented in a concrete form in terms of a mathematical or graphical form. So that part we have discussed. So this all the remaining portion is about the brief description of the signal, continuous time signal, discrete time signals, how to represent them mathematically, graphically, and all, and the significance of the signals, the importance of the signals, which kind of a signals will falls in which category. Just all the things we have already discussed in this portion. So this is analog signal digital. Some examples we have covered over here. Especially for energy signals, we can define by this equation: Eg is equal to the area under the curve g of t whole square, absolute value of g of t whole square. So we have defined this. And how you can conclude the signal is energy signal. So as the t approach to infinity, the amplitude of signal approach to zero. So this signals have a finite duration, and this finite duration signal is known as the energy signals. We have taken some examples, but those signal for which is periodic signals, or maybe starting from minus infinity and approaches to plus infinity. So for such kind of a signal, the true measure is not the energy but power. And for such kind of a signals, we define the power. We find the power for a signal which has an infinite duration. So we find the energy for a one cycle, as it is periodic signal. So whatever the you consider for a one periodic signal, the same can be prevail for other period also, other period of other cycle also. So we can find the energy for a one cycle and divided by the time period t0. So we are getting the energy per time unit, and this energy per time unit is known as a power. So this example we have taken. We have even discussed about this tongue tie rules. Signals may be either false in energy or as a power signal, but you can not find any signal which is you can not find any signal which is the energy and power both. So signal may be either energy signal or power signal, or maybe neither of them, but you may not find any signal which is energy signals as well as the power signal both. So this part we have covered, and this few examples we have even solved in which waveform is given, and we have to identify whether this signals is energy signal or power signals, and by using the formula which has already been discussed, we have to find the energy and power of the signal. So some examples I have already solved. Many examples basically we have solved, and few examples has been given as a exercise, right? So few examples has been given as exercise. Now then, we have discussed about some useful properties of a signal, and especially there are three properties we have discussed for the signals. One property is known as a time shifting property. So if you shift the signals from either from a right side or left side, it is known as a time shifting. So that portion we have discussed. And if we scale the signal, so if you shift the signal right side, so we define it is t minus. It is delay version of the signal, so it is defined by the t minus sign indicate the signal g of t is shifted by the 2 point right side. And if there is a plus sign g of t plus 2, so plus side is indicated the signal is advanced version of the original signal. It means the signal is shifted for left side, right? So that we have defined a t plus 2. So positive and negative side has indication. Negative side is define a right shifting, and positive sign of t plus some positive sign of a variable that defines the left shifting of the signal. Then we have defined about the time scaling. So time scaling means to compress the signals or to expand the signal in a time domain or in a x-axis domain. So if we compress the signal, so it is that compressing factor which is multiplied with the t, and if this compressing factor is greater than 0, then we can say the compression is applied, right? And in case of a compression, all the time axis points are divided by this compression factor. If the compression factor has 2, then all the points are divided by 2, like that. So this is a scaling factor, and this scaling factor or compressing factor. And if we expand the signal in the time axis, so that is known as a we can use the t divided by 2, or maybe multiply by t multiply with the factor a, where a is less than 1, or maybe between 0 to 1, right? So that way we have to define. So briefly, broadly, we can say if the signal g of t is scaled by some factor a, and we produce a g of at, then if a is greater than 1, we are always assuming a is greater than 0, not negative. We're discussing about all the positive value only. A is always positive. So a is lies within the 0 to 1. So that is known as a compression. But if a is found above 1, then the operation which is applied is expansion. We have taken example. Suppose g of 3t means the signal is compressed by 3, and g of 0.2t, where 0.2 is less than 1. So here it is defined by t by 5. It means the expansion is applied by the factor 5. The third property is the time reversal property. If the signal is folded with respect to this y-axis, right? The signal is shifted from this plus of axis to, I mean, the signal is flipped with respect to this y-axis, then it is known as a time reversal. In a time reversal, whatever the amplitudes was available earlier at the positive value of t, now available after time reversal, it is available at a negative value of t. And the vice versa is also true. If some amplitudes are available at a negative value of t, after time reversal, it will be appear at a positive value of t. So this point we have already covered. So basically here we have discussed about the three properties of a signal. One is the time shifting, where we shift the signals right or left, and accordingly the sign is assigned. Then we discuss about the time scaling, in which the signal is either compressed or maybe expanded in the time domain, and accordingly we can find output. And the third is the time reversal of the signal. So this part we have discussed. In the next few lectures, we have basically discussed about the power and RMS value of the signal. So we can say some signals are given and we need to find the power and RMS value. So by using the formula, we can find we have spent a significant amount of the time, where we have spent the significant amount of the time to solve the 6 example, right? Maybe one lectures we have already spent, 1 hours we have already spent to solve this all the 6 examples to find the power. So we can apply this formula and we can find the power. So this is related with this power and amplitude of the signal. Then we can go on with some properties. If G3T is given, so how you can modify the signals. If the signal is given as a G of T, but then you compress the signal by some factor or you expand the signal by factor, then it becomes a G of AT. So how you can draw these signals, how you can sketch this signal. So that exercise we have already covered. Few examples we have taken where G of T is given and you have been given as some you have to sketch signals as a g of t minus 4, g of t by 1.5, g of 2t minus 4, g of 2 minus t, and where you have to apply all this property one by one. So highest property is the time reversal property that we have already discussed. If there are multiple properties are applied on the signal, so highest priority is the time reversal. The second priority we can give is the time scaling, and the third is the time shifting, right? So these are the priorities. So first operation, if there are multiple operations are applied, so first operation is applied the time reversal, second is the time scaling, and the third operation is the time shifting can be applied. We have gone through a few examples regarding this. We have already solved many examples, few or many, so not many, but few examples we have solved in this way. Then we have even discussed about how to evaluate the signal if it is multiplied with the impulse response. So if any signal is multiplied with the impulse response, it means the value of that signals where the impulse is present. So if the impulse is present of tau, so it means the value of g tau, right? If any signal is multiplied with the impulse response in integration, so it means that result output of this one is the value of that functions where the impulse is present. So that part we have already discussed, and few examples we have already covered in the same line. And we have even discussed about one another component is the even kind of a signals and odd kind of a signal. So how you can find the signal is even and odd. So there is a one conditions that we need to check, and the condition is that if our signal is the g of t signal, and if g of t is equal to g of minus t, means after holding the signals, a time reversal of the signals, the signal shape and all this all the property of the signal is not going to change, right? So g of t and g of minus t are same, then we can say the signal is a even signal. Right. And we have taken some examples over here, and contradictory to the even signal, if the g of t is equal to minus g of minus t, right? Minus means the polarity is opposed, the amplitude polarity is opposed. So if g of t is equal to minus g of minus t, so g of t is known as a odd signal. So by considering this, we can find whether the signal is even signal or odd signal. And then we have gone through how to represent the signal in terms of the even component and or odd component. So if our signal is a g of t and its even component is g of t and odd component is g o of t, then g of t can be identified as a g of t plus g o of t, right? If the signal is a even signal. And if g of minus t, if the if the even component of g of t is 1/2 g of t plus g of minus t, and odd component of the g of t signal is 1/2 g of t minus g of minus t. So by this formula we can find the even component, and by this formula we can find the odd component from the signal. So this part we have already covered, and a few examples we have already solved over here. In these examples, basically you have to separate the even component and odd component of the signal. So few examples we have already solved where the signal is given in form of a g of t, and you need to separate the even portions and odd portion of the signal, right? You need to you have to separate it, the even portion and odd portion of this from the signal, right? So there are few examples we have already solved in the same direction. Then we discuss about the last point is the deterministic signal and random signals that we have already discussed. So this chapter is all about the signal, where we have discussed about the classification of the signals, the various property of the signals, various operations we can apply on the signals, and the definition of the signal and system and the application of signal and system. So this is already covered in chapter number 1, and the second chapter is basically devoted or dedicated about the system, right? It's about the system. So the system, we have already discussed, the system is the entities which process the signal. So if we have a set of the signals, x1 to xn are the input, x1 to xn are the input of the signals, and we apply to the some systems, and the system will produce some set of output in form of a y1 to ym. So the system here will play its role to convert the input of x1 to xn to y1 to ym. So that way they play its role, and it is the system is basically the entities which convert some set of input to some other set of output. So these portions we have already discussed. Now in the same line, we have classified the system in the measure category, and the measure category of the system can be defined or written over here. They are static or dynamic. So systems can be classified either as a static or dynamic. It may be a causal and non-causal system, linear or non-linear system, time variant or time invariant system, stable or unstable system, and invertible and non-invertible or not invertible system. So we can classify the system according to this 5 to 6 category. And first we are going to start with the static or dynamic system. So the static system is basically a system which don't have a memory, which doesn't have a memory. So it's a memory-less system, right? So every system is known as a system which doesn't have a memory, and its output doesn't depends on the only on the present input of the system. It don't have a memory, so we cannot store the previous input or output. So its output is depends totally on the present input of the system, but not depends either on the past or future value of input. So such kind of a system is known as a static system. Then contradictory to the static system, dynamic system is the reverse, that the output depends on the past, present and future value of the system. So that way we can define the static or dynamic system. A few examples we have already solved in the same line. Then we have discussed about the causal system and non-causal system. So we can define if the output depends only on the present and past value of input, but not on the future value of input, right? Output is depends only on the present and past value. You can note down this word. on present and past value of input, but not on the future value of input, then the system is known as a causal system. In a reverse case, the system is known as a non-causal system. So we have gone through this few examples we have already solved. How we will check? We will take the 3 points. 1 point is equal to 0, 1 point is equal to negative value of t, and 1 point is equal to positive value of t. And for all these 3 points, if we find the system is a causal system, then we can say it's a causal. But if we find for any of the input, the system will depends on the future value, then we can say the system is a non-causal system. Many examples we have already discussed in this portion. Then we discuss about the linearity and non-linearity concept. The system can be classified as a non-linear system or non-linear system, and the condition for this one, if we scale the input, if the signal output y of t can be represented as some function of the input x of t, and if some scaling is applied on the input, so same scaling is reflected in the output also. So if we scale the x of t by factor a, then output is also scaled by the same factor a, then it is known as a this is one condition for a linearity. The second condition is known as a superposition condition for a linearity, and the second condition is that, so we have already discussed, a time of x of t is equal to a time of y of t. So if we scale the input x of t by a by factor a, then output y of t is also scaled by the same factor a, then it is known as it's a one condition for linear system. It's okay. The second, sorry, it's a one condition, scaling condition, and second condition is a superposition condition, in which if we have a two input, x1 of t and x2 of t, and we have a two output, y1 of t and y2 of t. y1 of t is obtained as a function of x1 of t, and y2 of t is obtained as a function of x2 of t. So if we use the combined input as x1 and x2 of t, so if output is also separate out, is a combinations of individual inputs y1 of t and y2 of t, then we can say this is second condition of linearity. So if both the condition will satisfy, one condition is a scaling, which shows if the input is scaled by some factor a and output is also scaled by the same factor a. And second condition is that if we give the separate input x1 of t and x2 of t, and we record the output as a y1 of t and y2 of t, and if we give the combined input as x1 of t and x2 of t, and the output at the output we can separate the responses of y1 of t and y2 of t, it can be separable, then the system is known as a linear system. So both the conditions should be satisfied. Here it is given x1 of t is given, y1 of t is produced, x2 of t given, y2 of t is produced. And if we give the combined input as a time of x1 t plus b time of x2 of t, then if we separate out as a time of y1 of t plus b time of y2 of t, so combined input can produce the combined output, then the system is considered as a linear system. Otherwise, it is considered as a non-linear system. Many examples we have already solved in this one. To check whether the system is a linear system and not, you can go on through this whole example. Then the next one is the time variant. Time variant means the system response if the system response does change with a time, then it is known as a time variant system. But if the system response does not change with a time, so it is known as a time invariant system. So that is the difference between time variant and time invariant, and how one can check this. So for that one, if we replace every t with t minus t, right, and we can produce a y of t minus t, and if our input x of t is delay by some amount, and y output y of t is also delay by some amount, is known as a y of t minus tau. So if this output delay version of this output y of t minus tau is equivalent to the case where only the t is replaced with the t minus tau, or only the time is delay, then the system is known as a time invariant system, means not vary with the time. Otherwise the system is considered as a time variant. So what we are doing, we are changing every value of t with some delay t minus tau, and the same happens, or identical signal is obtained in other cases where only the input is delayed by the same amount and then output is produced. So in both the cases we are getting the same response. Y of t tau, key capital T is a responses where only the t is replaced with the t minus tau, and this output is delay by tau amount is recorded when the input is the delay by tau amount. If both are the same, we can say the system is a time invariant system. In other cases, it is known as a time variant system. Right? So we have gone through this one. And a few examples we have already solved over here, where it is given y of t is equal to t square of x of t and all. So we have already gone through few examples, right? We have already gone through few examples, and we have solved this one. Yeah, and one more thing is a linear time invariant system. Linear time invariant system means that if the system is a linear and time invariant, if the both the conditions should match, then the system is known as a LTI system. LTI system means linear time invariant system. It any one condition does not satisfy, it means the system is not linear, non-linear, or time invariant, or system is a linear but not time invariant, then we cannot say the system is a LTI system. LTI system means the system should follow both the condition. It should be a linear as well as it is the time invariant. Its response is a time invariant. Then and then we can say the system is a linear time invariant system. We have solved some examples in which we have to find the multiple answer. We have been asked multiple questions and we have to solve this all. We have to check whether the given system is static or dynamic. At the same time, we have to check whether the system is a linear or non-linear, maybe a causal or non-causal, or time variant or time invariant. So we have to answer out of all these questions for some kind of a system. So system response is given. So we have even gone through many examples in this direction also, where we have to answer out the multiple question and we have to classify the systems in multiple categories, right? Uh, this part we have already done, and this part is actually covered by Sony sir, so I'm not going in detail of this one. If the time permits, then we will discuss by tomorrow. Then I'm just going through this one, Fourier series and all. I think hope you have idea about this all. Okay, now another condition is to check the stability of the system. Now next property we came across is the stability of the system. So we have to check whether the system is a stable or unstable system. And for that we have to check the BIBO condition. BIBO means the bounded input and bounded output. So if the system for which we gives the bounded input and if it produces the bounded output, this is a system, and if we gives the bounded input and if the system is produce a bounded output, then the system is known as a stable system. Very importantly, you can note down this bounded input and bounded output condition, that is simply known as a BIBO system. So BIBO system is a system for which we give the bounded input and it produces a bounded output. Now what is the bounded input and bounded output? So bounded input is the input which has some finite duration. So again, the same condition what we have already discussed for energy signals. As the time approach to zero, if the amplitude approach, if the time approach to infinity, and if the amplitude approach to zero for any kind of a system, so that is known as a bounded input system. So for a bounded input, we have to check this condition. The system should have of a finite. A system must be of a finite duration systems. So as the time approach to infinity, and amplitude of the system will be approach to zero. And for that kind of input, if we apply to the systems, and the output is also as a bounded output, right? Bounded output means for output also we can say, if we can say the time approach to infinity and amplitude approach to zero, so that is known as a bounded output of the systems. And for this condition, we can check. So we have to apply the bounded input of the systems, and if we to check whether the produce output is also follows the bounded condition or not. We have taken few examples of this one, and the final condition we have to check is if we take the signal h of t. H of t is the response of your output y of t divided by the input f x of t, and if we take the find the integration of h of t, absolute value of h of t, and if this integration will converse means it provides the finite answer, right? It is less than infinity, then we can say the system is a stable system. Otherwise we can say the system is unstable system. So this is a condition we need to check. We have to check the output response and area covered by output response h of t. This h of t, area covered by the h of t, and if it is below infinity, that it converts, well, it gives a finite answer, then it is known as a stable. Otherwise it is known as unstable. So here we can say there are y of t is equal to e raised to x of t, and there are multiple such kind of examples are given, and we have to find out for all, or we have to check for all whether the system is represented by some equations, it is Bibo systems or not, right? So we have to go through this one. Then finally, we came across last system is there are some examples we have already solved. Many examples actually we have solved here. Um, uh, this is a few of them. We have spent I think 2 to 3 lectures for this one. And the last one is invertible and non-invertible system. So invertible system is a systems for which if the systems can be represent again in the same form, restore in the same form, then we can say the system is an invertible system. Taken as example, if x of t is given to some systems, right, and the system transfer function is t, and it produces an output as a y of t, and if you can produce some system which is inversible, which can have a response of t inverse, and then after applying the inverse response of the system t inverse on the output, then it again produces the same signal z of t is equal to x of t back, then the system is known as a invertible system. So if your output is produced with some transfer function of x of t by using the same inverse transfer function on y of t, if we are able to produce the same input x of t, then the system is known as a invertible systems, otherwise it is non-invertible systems. And for that one, what we need to check, we can have a one-to-one mapping, means one input is aligned with only single output. And if a one-to-one mapping means every individual inputs can be aligned with individual outputs. And one-to-many mapping, many into one mapping means one input is inclined with multiple output. If we give the one input by using the same function, we can produce a multiple output. So if we have a many to one mapping, so the system is always in invertible, non-invertible systems. It cannot be inverted, because if y1 of t is produced, we cannot have idea whether it is produced from x1 of t or it is produced from x2 of t, because both will produce the same output. So here there is a difficulty to identify the exact input when when the output is produced by same output is produced by multiple different inputs, and that kind of a mapping is known as a many to one mapping. But if we have one to one mapping, so for every individual input will produce an individual output. So if we apply this reverse transfer function, so for this output y1 of t, we can have only single answer is x1 of t, so that can be reversible invertible, right? So that is known as a one to one mapping. So here we can say if we have one-to-one mapping, the system is always transferable, but if we have many-to-one mapping, the system is generally not a transferable. So we have gone through a few examples, and we have solved many examples over here. We have solved many examples over here, right? Okay, and finally, that we came across the Fourier series and all. Okay, so I think we terminate. I need to terminate this, complete this lecture over here. This conclude the lecture over here, and I just you just hold it. I sign off from here and sign out with my desktop, where I will take your presence. Okay. Okay, so I have already, now I have already taken your presence, so now we can leave the meeting. Okay, have a nice day. Goodbye to.
Thank you, sir.